This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. So Ted Koppel sat down for a little confab with Marvin Kalb
Koppel.
at it's a terrible impersonation of Dana
horrible.
Carvey impersonating Ted Koppel.
Well, do you have a better one?
No, I don't do Ted Koppel.
Oh, you
or
don't
Dana
like?
Carvey doing Ted Koppel. I do Dana Carvey
Doing
impersonating Johnny Carson or Carcinio, the amalgam of Carson and Arsenio.
Okay.
I can do that too.
You want to give us something?
No.
Oh, come on.
No. That's
Maybe later.
I'm too put upon now. No, I can't do it.
It can't be forced.
It's got to be
natural.
organic.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
right.
All right.
So Koppel sat down, and I used to love Nightline. I used to watch Nightline all the
that
time.
was, yes, appointment television for me.
Pretty good interview show. Koppel seemed to play it pretty straight. I don't think he's
Probably.
conservative, but I think he was good on that show. Well, so he sits down this event that was hosted by the Carnegie Endowments for the Arts, and Marvin Kalb doesn't agree with Koppel. But here's what Koppel had to say about the D.C. press corps.
I'm terribly concerned that when you talk about the New York Times these days, when you talk about the Washington Post these days, we're not talking about the New York Times of 50 years ago. We are not talking about the Washington Post of 50 years ago. We're talking about organizations that I believe have, in fact, decided as organizations that Donald J. Trump is bad for the United States. We have things appearing on the front page of the New York Times right now that never would have appeared 50 years ago. Analysis, commentary, on the front page. I remember sitting at the breakfast table with my wife during the campaign after the Access Hollywood tape came out. And the New York Times, and I will not offend any of you here by using the language, but you know exactly what words were used. And they were spelled out on the front page of the New York Times. I turned to my wife and I said, the Times is absolutely committed to making sure that this guy does not get elected. So his perception that the establishment press is out to get him doesn't mean that great journalism is not being done. It is. But the notion that most of us look upon Donald Trump as being an absolute fiasco, he's not mistaken in that perception, and he's not mistaken when so many of the liberal media, for example, describe themselves as belonging to the resistance? What does that mean? That's not said by people who consider themselves reporters, objective reporters of facts. That's the kind of language that's used by people who genuinely believe, and I rather suspect with some justification, that Donald Trump is bad for the United States, and the sooner he's out of office, the better they will like him. Whether that happens by virtue of indictment, impeachment, or election, we'll see. But I disagree with you, Marvin. We are not the reservoir of objectivity that I think we were.
Not the reservoir of objectivity. It's a grand concession on behalf of Koppel. Now, Marvin Kalb disagreed, of course, saying, well, he gets that kind of coverage because he deserves it. Well, that was telling. You basically just confirmed everything Ted Koppel said. You're making a decision about what he deserves rather than what the facts are in a particular story. And this is why the New York Times and CNN and so many other outlets have been caught with their pants down so many times, have been forced to issue corrections and retractions and letters of termination to staff members for shoddy reporting. And that's what Koppel is suggesting. The question is Fox News, one of the last bastions of alternative views it pertains to the prevailing view of the D.C. Press Corps. Are they succumbing to the cultural Marxists with this, the completion of this acquisition by Disney Corp? Fox Corp now publicly trading the new parent of Fox News, Fox Entertainment, and Fox Sports. It's the result of 21st Century Fox's sale of its film and television assets to Disney Corp. The new company, Fox Corp., headed by Lachlan Murdoch, the eldest son of Rupert.
Yeah.
And they've got a new board, which includes Paul Ryan and also, interestingly, the ex-wife of Ken Griffin.
Really?
Yes. Who I can tell you is no conservative. For more on this topic, because he wrote about it, we're pleased to be joined again by Tom Lifson. He is the editor and publisher of the American Thinker, AmericanThinker.com. Thomas, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So your piece, Tectonic Plates Are Moving Underneath Fox News, speaks to this new corporate structure and its corporate leadership, and you suggest that conservatives have a lot to be concerned about.
Yes, I do, for all the reasons that you've just explained, plus the fact that the new corporate entity, Fox Corporation, is far more heavily dependent on the economic outcomes at Fox News than the previous parent, because it was much bigger and it had film and a whole variety of income sources outside of the Fox News channel. But with the new structure, the whole corporation is dependent on basically TV advertising and cable fees. And a threat to either of those will be reflected in the stock price a lot more directly than was the case under the previous ownership structure. And that means that efforts of people like CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, and Media Matters, which is a Soros-funded pressure group that's been trying to knock Fox News off the air for a decade now, those efforts can have an impact on the board of directors. And you've talked about the new board of directors having people like Paul Ryan on it, who has shown himself willing to, shall we say, compromise conservatism in favor of pressures from, donors like the Chamber of Commerce, who want no border wall, which is exactly what Ryan gave us when he was Speaker of the House. These are all things that could result in on-air talent changes because, right now there's an effort to get advertisers to boycott Fox News. And the way advertising markets work is if there's less demand, the prices go down. And pressuring major television advertisers to put Fox News on their list of places they don't want their advertisements to appear directly can impact the income of Fox News and therefore the economic results of Fox Corporation and its stock price. So there's a lot more vulnerability to this new institutional arrangement. The spin-off of a lot of the value in the previous Murdoch empire into Disney, and apparently a whole lot of cash coming into the Murdoch family coffers for investment in wherever they want to diversify into.
So do you think management knows that they have a possible image problem?
Oh, sure. I'm sure they do. They get. I don't know this for a fact, but I assume that they are under a constant barrage of pressure from especially these two organized groups, but others as well, Media Matters and CARE, and they get these pressures all the time. We saw this with Tucker Carlson very recently, where there was a boycott, and for a while, Mike Lindell and My Pillow were just about the only non-Fox commercials that you saw on Tucker's show, and I'm sure it's having an impact. The rest of it was just promos for other Fox shows.
But the another question, though, a more fundamental question, seems to me: do the Murdoch boys, does the corporate board, do they believe in the product? That's the question.
Yeah, well, at the moment, the other Murdoch boy, James, who is apparently a lot less ideological than Lachlan, who is the one that's the president of the new Fox Corporation. Lachlan appears to be more of a libertarian conservative, but honestly, I think it's the bottom line that matters. You know, with a second generation of any business empire, there's always a lot of pressure on them to keep the performance up, and anything that threatens the stock price ultimately threatens Lachlan.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is, so what is the change you're going to make? You're going to move left? Well, then you're going to lose audience. And so that's another way to hamper yourself economically and to reduce performance is start parroting or approximating CNN or MSNBC, the other cable networks. Then you lose audience and you lose advertisers when you don't have audience.
Right. That's exactly what they have to weigh. And it all depends on the time horizon. If advertiser boycotts can depress revenue for long enough, the board will seek to right that situation and do something to get back the advertisers. And this is how I interpret right now the addition of, I'm blanking on her name, the
Donna Brazil.
Donna Brazil.
Oh, yeah, right.
To the Fox News channel's stable of contributors who are people that they pay to appear regularly on their panels and their discussions and so forth. They don't get to anchor shows, at least not until they've proven themselves. But you know, she's somebody that openly cheated when she worked at CNN and fed debate questions to Hillary Clinton to prepare her to answer them better than otherwise. And Fox News has now added a cheater to their roster.
Well, she won't be able to do that at Fox because they're not allowed to host a DNC debate. So you don't have to worry about that.
Well, I think part of that decision to add her is to put pressure on the DNC to reverse its decision. That was Tom Perez who announced that decision. And I'm sure it rankles Fox because it ratifies in the mind of many people that Fox is merely a Republican outlet, and it allows its rivals to claim that they are unbiased compared to Fox, which of course is ridiculous, but that's an argument that they can make because Fox is too biased to host a Democrat debate. I'm sure they want to change that. I'm sure they terribly desire to host at least one DNC presidential debate, and Donna knows a lot of people in the DNC, and she can argue that position for them. You know, they also have to make sure that they have the appropriate bean count underway for faces that appear on their screen, racially and so forth, and ideologically. So they're trying to reinforce the notion that they are fair and balanced, their slogan, and that the other cable news rivals are not. And to me, that's a very persuasive case. You just have to watch them and see. There are basically no real conservatives on MSNBC and CNN as regular contributors. CNN got rid of Jeff Lord, who was a real contributor on a trumped-up charge of being a Nazi, which is ridiculous for anybody that knows Jeff.
But you know, it's interesting, though, this conversation, and I think you're right to sound the whistle of concern. Because sometimes we see it all the time. Media companies don't make decisions based on the bottom line. They make decisions based on ideology because they're ideologues. So, I mean, for example, in Chicago, all the network affiliates do the same thing. And so I've always been curious. Fox Chicago, so ABC7 does it the best here. They have the highest ratings and have like forever.
They have the best website.
And Fox Chicago has hashtags. Nobody watches Fox Chicago. So you would think if I'm running Fox Chicago, I say, well, here's the thing. A center-right perspective, doing stories from a different perspective, doing stories that the rest of the news outlets won't do, telling those stories, that may not have appeal among all 8 million people. It may not have appeal among ABC7's audience. But a subset of this metropolitan market, this DMA, is a huge number, and it's a much bigger number than we're pulling now. So why don't we try to differentiate ourselves? But rather than differentiating themselves, Fox Chicago is just another network affiliate lemming. So it makes no economic sense, but they do it anyway.
Right. I think, you know, I've been puzzling over this for years, really for decades. And I think a big part of it is that the social reference group of management in media consists largely of people on the left, of progressives. And it's downright embarrassing for them to have to represent a conservative channel when they go to the meetings of the broadcasting, the industry organizations.
Right.
And of course, people are looking for their next job. Media jobs are notoriously transitory. People get fired all the time. And if there's one outlet that's conservative and all the others are not conservative, you just want to make sure your resume doesn't look too out of character for the rest of the industry. And this is why Fox News Channel makes such efforts to proclaim itself fair and balanced, and hires people like Brazil and others that I'm sure are familiar to you.
Juan Williams and the like, yeah, right.
Yeah, well, and they began with, if you remember, Sean Hannity's show,
Alan
was originally
Colmes.
Hannity and Colmes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Tom Lifson, excellent piece. He's the editor and publisher of American Thinker. The piece I referenced, Tectonic Plates Are Moving Underneath Fox News. Check it out at americanthinker.com. Thomas Lifson, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
I'm Ted Koppel, and this is my lunch.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.